This is Chuck Rowe from Midwest Studies Group. Thanks for joining us again for another edition of our video series. Today, we're talking about ways to show appreciation to your donors during COVID. I'm joined by Lori and Katie, who make up part of the development team at the Humane Society for Greater Nashua. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So, COVID put a stop to face meetings last year. And as people who love to engage the community, what do you remember going through your minds when you heard from somebody you can't meet with anybody?
Oh, I think at first it was just, wow, okay, new concept. How are we going to reach out to everybody? But I think the very first thing we did before we started talking about thanking people was just a check-in. And that really started at first with an email that was not a solicitation, was just an email to our donors, say, how are you doing? We hope you're okay. We're doing okay. We gave them a little idea of what was happening at the shelter at that time, although things were changing first. But I think the very first step we did was just, we're thinking about you and hoping you and your family are okay.
And you guys fit in perfectly with the budget size of nonprofits that we tend to work with, that small to medium sized nonprofit. But even then, you have a decent sized list to go through. How did you divide up that list between all your staff, or maybe you just did it, Lori? How did you contact all those donors?
Well, Katie and I did a lot of work together, and I got to say that we are incredibly fortunate to reach a lot of donors. A lot of our donors follow our social media because Katie has made it be so interactive, informative. It tells a story and it's interesting. And there's a lot of original content out there and useful content. So, Katie was really doing a tremendous job there, as she always has been. And then, I think we were, like I said, our first reaches were really to the global. And then we really tried to select it group wise. We've started with recurring donors, our major donors, breaking it down there. We talked to people who had been, and we certainly didn't talk to every constituent. That's just not feasible and not possible with our small team and small shop. But sure, through a variety, and some people don't want to be contacted via a phone call. Not everybody was up for that. But we truly tried to segment it out first and really talking to the people who touched us the most first. That just made sense.
And Katie, one of the things we talked about before is virtual events. And you got to join us with a panel discussion with that earlier. But now enough time has passed for a virtual event, what are some of your sponsors and donors saying to you about doing another virtual event, or do they miss kind of interacting with you at a live event?
I'd say it's a both and. I'd say from a sponsor perspective, they were all thrilled with the ROI report that our director of partners had sent them that kind of showed, they got about 3 times as much exposure by doing a virtual event. So they were thrilled. And so they're hopeful that even if we do in-person events, we'll maintain a lot of those pieces to continue giving their brands the well-deserved exposure that they got. But our attendees, they miss that face-to-face connection. We've been doing virtual events for about a year. As a global, everyone has been doing virtual events for about a year. And I think we're all ready to get off of our screens and see someone. So you kind of hear a mixture from everyone. They miss that connection, but they are excited that we can have minimal connection through chatting and through Zooms, but the people are missing that face-to-face and just that fun evening or event with each other.
Well, it's funny that you bring this up because for what we do at Midwest Studies, we literally interview potential donors and donors every single day, nonstop, unless I'm talking to the two of you. And one of the comments we hear all the time is that social media is great, but people would love to have like the ROI report to figure out, here I am paying this much for a sponsorship. What am I getting from it? Maybe you could share with us, what does your ROI report include?
So we kind of like to walk backwards from the day of the event through the beginning where we started promoting it and kind of think about everywhere we promoted it and where we would have showed someone's logo, showed someone's website. So it includes statistics, so how many followers we have on each different platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. and then how many email subscribers we have. And we're lucky we work with an email platform where we're actually able to then take the links and send those so they can physically see that. It's a little bit harder to send a specific post, but they get the idea and they do get notified when we tag them. But it just includes statistics as to who our followers are, broken down by each platform and each medium, and even all the way into our shelter where we put a print flyer, how many people on average come in a day. And then we say, where was your logo? So your logo was in 3 newsletters. Your logo was in 4 posts. Your logo was on 2 flyers in our lobby. And then that sub bullet is where you put those statistics so they can see you didn't just get this much exposure, but you got this much exposure for this many people.
So Lori, I have to ask you here, since it was brought up, will I see a music video of you and Katie doing a duet together on TikTok or anything?
No, nobody wants to see that, especially from me. But she's done some really creative TikToks especially we have some famous animals, that adopted animals, I guess, in our team, and they've been kind to be some stars for us.
How could somebody find these videos?
If you follow us on TikTok at hsfn.nh, we're there, but we also try to put them on our stories at Humane Society for Greater Nashua on Instagram and Facebook. Just since TikTok is still growing, we want to make sure everybody sees them. So we'll put them on our stories as well.
Okay, yeah, great idea. Love it. So thanks for sharing that. Now, something I wanted to talk to you about, though, is that Lori was a brainchild of this amazing idea and a way to keep in contact with donors and make sure that you show appreciation to them. Lori, can you share a little bit about what this idea was?
Sure, by all means. Well, I'm going to back up first and just say in a normal year, when we're not all under the influence of COVID, thanking our donors, all the standard ways every nonprofit does is very important to us. But in addition, we usually have 2 events annually where it's not about an ask, it's not about networking, it's about just coming together, thanking, it's about just relationship. And a big part that our donors get out of those is also then interaction with other people who care about our organization as well. They share that commonality over adopted pets, interests in volunteering, whatever. So we'll have 2 events that we host, and they're not over the top by any means, but people really look forward to those. And of course, this year we haven't been able to do that. So we really still wanted to, our nonprofit, and I think like so many across the board, our donors just were a lifeline to us this year. And in the time where it was difficult on everyone, because some of them might have been furloughed, some of their own companies may have been suffering, man, did they come through and support our mission and support our work for homeless pets. And so we really wanted to thank those. Now, again, I couldn't afford to thank every single person. And while I do appreciate every single person, we really wanted to make sure our top donors and our donors who have been there for us through thick and thin and wrote significant checks to us this year, or donated significant money, really felt appreciated. So I worked with a local caterer who supports our organization and came up with a Rise and Shine breakfast box. And there are some pictures you may be able to share afterwards or include. But basically it was just a box that was assembled together. We had a really nice note, and thankfully our organization is blessed to have a graphic designer. There's lots of people who give to us in so many ways. But basically it was a breakfast box that we delivered. We had a team of volunteers go out. We dressed it up a little bit with a ribbon. And we wanted to say, this is just to say thank you. Again, no ask, no envelope, nothing else included in there for any kind of like return on investment. I'm not looking for that. It was just about thanking the people who meant so much to us and hoping that while we were all home, our concept was, well, we were all home a little bit more this year and you weren't going out because you couldn't go out and do as much, that on a Saturday morning when you had a few minutes, you could enjoy some of these breakfast goodies. So this catering company did a really nice job helping us with presentation. There was fresh fruit in there. There was some special cranberry bed, candied bacon was in there.
I think I saw some waffles maybe. And
yes. But we tried to make it not too over the top and easy. At one time we talked about, could we do something with a Bloody Mary in there? That just wasn't in our price point. But these were so well received. So people got them. We delivered on a Friday and they could enjoy it over the weekend at their leisure. And I can't tell you, we have gotten more compliments. That gesture, it doesn't, a gesture doesn't always have to be super expensive, and you want to be cognizant of that. We all have budgets, but a gesture of kindness and what was written as a thank you in there, I think was very poignant and very meaningful. And I think it was very well received. Our team was so pleased with the outcome of it. And, the caterer was too, it was a nice opportunity for them to have some business. I didn't get it completely donated. I paid some money for it, but I got it at a discount. But it was an opportunity for them to highlight their services. It was a good partnership. They've been good to us for a long time.
And we're showing photos of this currently, so everyone knows what they look like. And maybe you
Nice.
could talk about some of the pre-planning of how the logistics look. Like how was it designed, and who got the box, and who, did you have to do a lot of do that planning yourself, or did they do it?
Sure. So we actually, as for the box, really, I worked with the caterers. These are people we have worked with for a couple of years now on some of our other events, and a different donor appreciation event that they had catered. So they worked with me they got the box, they showed me ideas. Our team did the decoration of the box, and meaning in the ribbon and putting together the text and the graphic design to add a little color. We didn't want to make it screaming Christmas, even though it was coming out at the holidays, but we played off red and black in it for colors and some yellow. So it was a really good combination. I did a lot of pulling the donor list, and like I said, it was certain people who had given at a certain level and above. Certainly when I pull that list, there were some people who weren't feasible for us. So we really wanted to keep it, I think we probably did at tops about 15 miles from our hub and our shelter, because we wanted to make it reasonable to do the delivery and that we could pull it off before it got dark at 4 o'clock on the East Coast of New Hampshire, as it does that time of year. So it was really a team effort, but a real key for me was having great conversation, great relationship with the caterer. It was somebody I was comfortable working with. They've done a lot. They were very open to the idea of working with us because their business has taken a huge hit too. There's not weddings and parties happening. So they were really great to work with me. And of course, Pinterest provided a boatload of ideas. I mean, that was another place to go. And just, was looking at Pinterest and sharing ideas back and forth with the caterer.
So if you could put a little bit of math to this, and I know a lot of this will be a guesstimate, but I guess the question is, how many boxes did you do, and how much work power did it take? How many hours did it take for the two of you and the rest of your staff? And how many volunteers did you need in order to get all this together?
So we did 57 boxes that we delivered, and we had a couple. So let's just ballpark it and say we did 60. And then we had 5 teams going out and delivering on a Friday afternoon. So the volunteers were with us from probably about 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, because we really wanted people to deliver before, like I said, it got dark. And we did email our donors in advance so they would know it was coming, and to say, we're doing a safe delivery. Our volunteers are coming. They're knocking on your door, leaving something and walking away. We purposely built the box, and with what was inside, nothing was going to spoil. And of course, again, it's New Hampshire. It was cold enough outside that wasn't really a concern. So I would say the teams of volunteers that we had, they probably all gave about 3 hours that Friday afternoon doing the deliveries, and they helped us just do the final assembly of the ribbon on the outside. And I would say otherwise, ballpark staffing, I'd probably say it took maybe in total about 12 hours between the back and forth with the catering company was probably the longest, certainly pulling some of the lists. I'd probably say, 10 to 12 hours of staff time. And then, like I said, we had the 5 teams, and they probably each gave 3. So, another 15 hours of volunteer time. Katie, does that sound about right to you, think?
It does. And I know the volunteers had a really great time. A few of them showed up and they mentioned they were going to stop and grab a favorite cup of coffee, and they had some playlists ready. So they had like a buddy with them to go and do the drive. So we have an incredible volunteer base across the board, but the ones who showed up and they were just thrilled to be delivery drivers for the day, and they made it so fun. And it's always nice to see, you know, it's a different job. It's different than the typical working with the animals, and they loved that they were able to serve in that way, which was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And it sounds like you engaged those volunteers really well to probably want to do it again sometime in the future. And talking about the future, if you were ever to do this again, when you think about maybe each of the tasks, how we're divided up between the two of you and others, if each of you, is there a detail that you wish you could do a little bit differently or improve upon if you were to do this again?
I have one, which was a simple, that there was a couple of donors that I did not know were vegetarian. And while there were a few vegetarian options in there, I probably should have, you know, the candied bacon, I would have purposely made sure that box didn't have it delivered in there. You know, and that was on me. It was just truly, it was something I didn't know. I didn't know the meal preferences of a couple. The ones that I did, I accommodated for, but I kind of got a surprise on a couple, was very minimal, but that's just something, a nice touch that I would definitely make that different for the next time, and maybe even ask that in advance of people. We let them know just 2 days, 3 days before we were coming. And it was just, hey, we're coming, we're bringing this to you. It's our gift. Please enjoy. We're so grateful for you. But I wasn't soliciting any information back. And, you know, just as any, you know, as you wouldn't want to serve somebody a sit down meal at your gala, that's not to their preference. I felt a little bad that the box contained a few things for just, it was 2 people that let me know afterwards. So lesson learned there.
Sure.
But,
Katie, do you have anything?
I think they were incredible. So, I mean, the only thing I would change, which is kind of outside of our bandwidth, but would be to be able to deliver farther. But again, you know, you can only put so many miles on everybody's car, but that would be the only thing in a perfect world that I would love to see is, I mean, I'd love to be delivering a box to you in Iowa.
Oh, that would be great. And you know what? I'll give you two my address. And if anyone has issue with candy bacon,
yeah,
you're more than welcome to just put it all in one box and bring it over.
we heard it was pretty fabulous.
So,
It was.
so, well, before I let you go, and not just including the boxes, but just development and connecting with people in general. If each of you had one piece of advice you would give to a development team at another nonprofit during this COVID time, what would it be?
So for me, I think it sounds kind of corny, but relationships. You know, our email to check into people and say, how are you doing when COVID first started was incredibly well received. We did another one at the holiday. I mean, yes, we did include we sent out a different email that offered about a year-end gift. So yes, we did that too, but prior to that, we had sent another email that, you know, was really just checking in and wishing you and your family a happy holiday and safety. You know, it's still about keeping that personal touch. I mean, as much as it's about what you're doing in fundraising, it's truly about those relationships too, and showing that you really care about the person who is sitting behind there writing the checks. We all want to feel appreciated, and we all want to have that kind of connection, you know, that just makes you tied into an organization that much more because you feel like they're very genuine about how they treat you. I think that that's been incredibly important through COVID and the stress and the disconnect everyone's had.
And I love it. That's what we're all about here at Midwest Studies. It's all about relationships are first. So that's some great words. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo that. And I would also just encourage anyone working in development during these times to embrace the opportunity to be creative. You might not get this again for a long time, but you're kind of handed the chance to try all these new things. People are offering ample amounts of grace. So if you want to try a new email platform, try it now. If you want to try something different on your social media, try it now because people will understand. They'll say, oh, it's COVID. Like if they don't like it, they are offering a lot more grace. And then take advantage of the tools that we have available. So You might not be able to email every single donor and say, hey, Chuck, thinking of you. Take advantage of the coding where you can make one email and it will pull from your database and then it'll customize their first name. It will mean the exact same to them because they will think that you hand wrote Dear Chuck, but it'll save you hours of time. So highly recommend that you take advantage of adding that personal name, but you don't have to handwrite it. You can use a coding option.
And that's some great advice right there as well, because people like me, I've been in the nonprofit world for 25 years. I've been doing this, and the tools that I had 25 years ago compared to what we have now, sometimes I don't even know they exist, or I take it for granted. So that's a great point you bring up. So if anyone had some questions and they wanted to ask you two about these boxes you put together, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I would say email is probably the easiest, especially if perhaps they're in a different time zone since you reach across the country. So my email address is my first name, which is Laurie, Laurie, at hsfm.org.
Well, great. I really appreciate you being part of this discussion today. Not even just about the boxes, but learned a couple of other ideas from the two of you. So to learn more about MSG, make sure you visit MidwestStudiesGroup.com. Thanks for joining today. Chuck Rowe, Midwest Studies Group. Catch you next time. And then that's it. Piece of cake, right?